Hi, my name's Greg Spawton. I'm from Big Train, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Welcome, everybody. This is Scott Medina for Sonic Perspectives. We're really excited today to talk with the founder of Big Train, Greg Spawton. Welcome to the interview on Sonic Perspectives, Greg.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, we're excited. The world is excitedly awaiting the release of the new album, The Grand Tour, and we'll be coming out with a lot of questions about that for you if you're game.
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Okay, so jumping right into it, it seems that for 5 or 6 albums now you've been focusing your lyrical content on telling stories of the English landscape and the people. And we thought that Grimsbound was going to be the last in that series, but then the second brightest star surprised everyone with its release.
Yes.
Yeah, so with this new album, are we truly moving out into the world on the grand journey or the grand tour at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'd gone as far as we could with the sort of English landscape and people thing that we started. I mean, we started that in 2009, I think, with the Under Voyager, sort of writing about kind of what we know, I suppose. And it's been a it's been a rich seam of material for us. There's been lots of stories we've been interested in, and we've connected with the sort of landscape and countryside around here. So it's been good, and people have enjoyed that part of our music. But when we sat down to think about the next album, we felt very strongly that it was time to move out into the world, and there was a nice parallel for us because we were, the band is playing gigs outside of England now, and our whole horizon has shifted, and so we thought it sort of worked in parallel with the ambitions for the band to write about subject matters outside of England.
Yeah, that new spirit of adventure seems to be well encapsulated in your first single, Alive.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, David was, very much, Alive is very much a sort of seize the day kind of song. And I think the sort of, the backstory to the album is that for us, they all say travel broadens the mind. And, we think if you're getting out and about in the world, you'll discover things about yourself and about other people and other cultures and all of those things. So travel's a good thing. And, as I say, it just seemed to fit nicely with the story of the band growing out of the UK as well. And therefore we were able to sort of shift our whole viewpoint, I think, a bit further out into the world.
Yeah, when you're starting to look at the beginning of a new album, since you and David are the main lyric writers, do you plot out the album's themes and stories before the music is ever written?
Songwriting is a messy business, so it's never really possible to start from a completely blank slate. Normally there'll be some work in progress or some ideas or something that's happened that will set you in a certain course or direction. So David and I mean, we live about 150 miles apart. For Americans, that's just down the road, but for English people, that's a long way. So we talk most days via FaceTime, and when we're thinking about songs, we tend to, when we're writing songs, we tend to sort of share what we're doing with each other, and it kind of organically, for almost all the way along in the sort of partnership we've had over the last decade, there'll be this sort of organic process where we connect, our ideas connect, and we start to formulate, what will be the next album. So, we knew we were talking about writing songs set outside of England, and it was David that came up with the sort of concept of the Grand Tour, which is a very familiar phrase in Europe. It may not be in the States, I'm not sure, but in Europe it goes back to the 17th century, and it's a concept of getting out into the world and finding yourself and discovering things about history, etc. So we like that idea. We, obviously there's an issue with a very famous, certainly in the UK, very famous motoring show. So we had some discussion about whether we should sort of stick to our guns there, but we decided, it summarised the album quite nicely, or the message of the album. So we stuck with it. Nice.
Yeah. So were you thinking of just some alternate play on words of the Grand Tour otherwise?
Yeah. Yes. And, it may be, I mean, we had a couple of alternative ideas for titles, but it might be, we don't know yet, but it may be we do a sort of follow-up album at some stage, certainly not got it written at the moment, and it may be that we use one of those alternative titles for that. So I won't share those with you at the moment. But yeah, I think it's a question of sticking to your guns. The worry is, you sit there and think, well, you're going to get a lot of people commenting about the connection to a television show, but it's a very long-standing phrase, a very long-standing concept, and so therefore we thought, actually, it's sort of public ownership of that phrase.
Yeah.
And we felt strongly enough that we could, we forge our own identity with it.
There's a host of really strong melodies throughout this album, right from the opening track, Nova Morganum, until the final closing track, Home Song. Do you come at it in a different direction each album? How strong melodically you want to focus on, or is that just evoked from the stories that you're telling?
I think we're very much a song-orientated band. So even if there are some long instrumental passages on this album. There's an instrumental track as well. But even then, our focus is on melody. We like things like fusion and stuff like that, where maybe there's more of a focus on sort of playing, etc. But we've always been very much a songwriting collective. So I don't think there's necessarily a change in approach per album. I think it's just that for us the song is the thing. That's where popular or rock music is at its best, where the song is at the core of everything. And it may be that song is 15 minutes long, or it may be it's 3 minutes long. It doesn't really matter in that respect. It's just we feel it's the sweet spot for us as songwriters is working on material that has a melodic a melodic interest, if you like.
Yes, exactly. And now drummer Nick DiVirgilio has several writing credits on this new album too.
Yeah, so Nick's been he's been very patient actually, because he's been sort of chaffing away, wanting to get into the writing for a little while, and it's actually one of the three tracks he's either composed or co-composed on the album. We had in the Big Train catalogue a couple of years ago, because it was originally submitted for a different album, but we held on to it because it needed to find the right home, and it felt right on this selection of songs. And Nick's, he's a great writer. He's, as you know, an incredible drummer, and we've not been able to accommodate the writing so far, but now we have, and I'm sure he'll be a big part of the writing team moving forward. What's been nice has been collaborating. He's we all write individually, but also it's good to collaborate. So there's a song on there called Theodora in Green and Gold, and he trusted us with his music. He handed that over and said, "Here's some chords, and go away and write the melodies and the words." And that's it's a great thing to have that trust. And a little bit nerve-wracking when you play it to the main composer of the song and hope that they like what you've done. But nevertheless, it's good, and I think it just speaks volumes for the spirit in the band that we're all pushing forward together to get the most from Big Big Train.
Yes, indeed it is. And I know with him, he's working on a new solo album. So I guess it's interesting from his perspective or all of your perspectives as to which material you choose, to keep for your own in your own works or other bands, and which you say, this feels like a big Train composition.
That's a very good point. And all of us really have, ideas for side projects or solo works. And I think what we've been able to do in the last few years is kind of define territory for Big Big Train, where the songs will sit best for us. I was at Abbey Road just a week or so ago with Nick recording some string parts and brass parts for his solo album, and honestly, you're in for a treat. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of work. I did say there was one particular song, and I thought, this would be a really good Big Big Train track. So I sort of gave him a slightly grumpy stare on that one. But so there's always going to be crossover. There's always going to be tracks that kind of would work as a solo thing or and Big Big Train thing. But no, honestly, they're great songs and great instrumentals he's got there, and to bear witness to part of the creative process was really exciting. It's really good fun.
Yeah, well, I've spent some time with him when he's been over here. I think it was at a show he was doing with Spock's Beard a couple of years ago, and it was just really touching. And I wanted to pass on to you of when he would talk about to the Spock's Beard fans about Big Big Train, because in playing in the States, not everyone is as aware of Big Big Train, and the kind of pride and glow that he has about him when he speaks about this band really made an impression on me. And even though I was already familiar with the band at that point, I could see it really was touching other listeners who were like, "Oh well, I guess I better check these guys out."
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, I genuinely love the man. He's been a huge part of my life for over a decade now. And what's been nice, we started really just playing a couple of sessions for Big Big Train. It was no more than that. But I can't imagine, over the years that evolved into sort of full band membership, and then as you said a few minutes ago, with him writing songs for us now, and I just can't, I couldn't imagine doing it without Nick. He's such a musical drummer, and also he's just a lovely human being, and to get those two things together is fantastic. We're, all of us in the band, we're not, we've been around a bit, and we don't, life's too short to work with people that you don't want to work with, and so it's been very, very, it's just been great over the last few years building this partnership of players and writers that is Big Big Train. It's fantastic, and it's very heartwarming to hear that he's speaking so highly of us in the States.
Oh yeah, you really got the feeling like, hey, but this is my band. You should check out my band. It was pretty cool. Along those lines, a lot of times these days the new supergroups are introduced to the world, but in your case, it feels more like your band has evolved into a supergroup over the span of a decade.
Yeah, it's been a weird last few years, really. I mean, the band goes back over 20 years, and we for most of that time we couldn't really get arrested. It was it was hard slog with sort of low sales, etc. And then we began to find our feet a bit. Slow starter, obviously, I must be, but we found part of it is, I think I've always been a decent songwriter, but needed to get the right people to work with to bring life to those songs. And so Started working with Nick in 2007, and David Longdon came on board as singer in 2009. And that began to be the sort of core of of Big Big Train as it is today. And obviously we brought in Danny, Rachel, and Dave Gregory, etc., and then Rickard fairly recently. The nice thing is, because I mean, genuinely, Nick and Rickard and Dave Gregory, these are high-profile musicians in the prog world and beyond, and so it could have that feel of a supergroup, but because it's been an organic process. Because we've kind of just worked together and it's grown as a sort of proper partnership. It within the band, it just feels like and is just a proper band. It's amazing, and to grow from, what had become a studio project with a couple of guys into getting back onto stage and, doing tours and stuff has been really, really exciting and really heartwarming. And, there's a real spirit of camaraderie in the band, and I think we're all on board, and we all want to go as far as we can within the limitations of the music business as it is these days. It's quite hard.
How do you make sure that there's not a dynamic of too many cooks in the kitchen with that many people who are have their own recording careers and amazing bands in their history?
Yeah, it is. It can be. I tell you what can be difficult is making sure there's almost not too much in the song sometimes. I mean, we've got. There's two ways of looking at complexity in music. You've got that sort of horizontal complexity and vertical complexity, and I think we've got both of those things. So the songs change a lot over the sort of horizontal time, and then vertically there's a lot of different parts stacked up as well, because we've got the brass band on top of everything else, and there's a string section on the new album too. And sometimes there's a fight for space, and we can end up sometimes saying to musicians who've put their life and soul into parts that actually we're not going to use that because it's just too crowded an environment, and it causes grumbles, and I can't pretend that giving birth to an album is the easiest of things, but we all know it's for the best, and the rule we have is that the writer is the producer, so whoever's written a particular song gets the final say on how that arrangement works. And we trust the guys and girls to come up with their very best parts as they do, and we get there in the end. It's there's a bit of give and take and a bit of grumbling and a bit of try this and try that. A good example is the song called The Florentine, where we knew there was going to be a keyboard solo on there, or there was space for a keyboard solo, but Rickard came in first with a beautiful guitar solo. And so, that was a question of can we also accommodate a keyboard solo as well. So we gave that a spin, and in the end, the song grew in length to accommodate both of those things. And we got two lovely melodic solos on there, where the players were able to show what they can do and to do their bits. In other places, we've had to take bits out, so sometimes you win, sometimes you lose them.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated watching the right side of the stage to see where Rickard will take a guitar solo or where Dave will. I mean, there's such an abundance of riches there.
That's exactly right. And, quite often we get the question, whose solo is that? And it's not always easy to tell, because they're both players that, the proper crank an amp up, get a warm tone, old-fashioned almost guitar players, and I think they're both they kind of idolise each other actually in a funny way. They're both got huge respect for each other, and enjoy sort of working together. They learn from each other, so we've got a very cool guitar lineup in the band. It's something rather splendid.
Yeah. When Andy left the band a year ago, how has that impacted the way that you approached both writing this new album and playing live dates?
So Andy's musical involvement was fairly limited in recent years. He took more of a production and sort of artwork role or graphic design role. For live purposes, I mean, when we play live, it is an extended lineup. There's 13 musicians on stage, because what we try to do is to present the music as we've recorded it with all the complexity of the parts. And Andy had a role there. He's playing additional keyboards and guitars and mandolin, etc. So, when Andy left last year, and we had gigs booked, we knew that we wanted to replace him for live performance, and called on a good friend of ours called Robin Armstrong, whose band is called Cosmograph. So his main work is as a writer, and he creates albums of original music, beautiful stuff as well. But I'd seen him play live. I mean, Cosmograph have actually only played one show, but it was a really high-profile gig. So I watched Robin, command the stage there, and I thought, yeah, he's the guy for us. Asked him to join us just for the live band. Coming back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago, there's so many ideas amongst the seven of us in the studio version of the band that we don't need an eighth musician there. But certainly for live purposes, Robin's a great person to have on board. It's good to look over from my side of the stage and see him over there handling his parts with aplomb. It's great.
Yeah, and the new Cosmograph album is excellent too. Much heavier, obviously, than Big Train material, but wonderful.
It's great. Yeah, I've got a copy of it just here by my side, actually. He's done a terrific job, and he's always had that kind of 70s sort of heavy rock sort of style to him, which hasn't come out so much in earlier Cosmograph albums, but he sort of let it out this time, and that's cool. It's great. He's good. He's a natural. He's a really good writer.
Yes, indeed. So getting back to the new album, the track Voyager, for me is certainly a highlight of the album, and it also seems to symbolize the album's theme. We can even hear that staccato signal of piano notes, and even in the opening track, I think, as well.
Yeah, there's a direct connection between Novum Organum and Voyager. So Novum Organum is taken from a book called Novum Organum Scientiarum, and I think it was published in the 17th century. And that, it literally means new instrument of science. So this was a period when mankind was coming out of the medieval period and was heading into sort of early modern period, and the scientific revolution was just around the corner. And I thought, I mean, if you've got an album about voyaging, about traveling, about getting out into the world and beyond, a song about Voyager would be a sort of fitting thing to write. And I've written a couple of other pieces in recent years, East Coast Race from Brooklands, which have been exploring the sort of relationship between mankind and the machines that mankind create to kind of extend the reach of humanity. And the Voyager spaceships are for me the ultimate example of science doing something completely remarkable and almost beautiful, really. The fact that these ships are now heading out of the solar system into deep space and will be around out there as kind of our envoys for probably billions of years is just incredible. I mean, they'll the truth is that they may well exist beyond mankind. They may well continue beyond the end of humanity, and that's just an amazing story. Who'd have thought it? I mean, I was 12 when those ships were launched, and as was David. So they really caught the imagination of my generation of kids. And we sort of, because the voyage is so long. I mean, even last week they fired up some motors on Voyager 1 or 2. I can't remember which one. So it's been almost a lifelong fascination with those spacecraft, and it's nice to do. Yeah, it's good to write a song which hopefully helps to tell a bit of their story.
Yeah, it's an epic journey that they're on. I mean, the most epic we could conceive of, and so I was really satisfied to experience that the song you wrote about it is just as epic and breathtaking. So well done on that.
Thank you. That's kind. Thank you.
Yeah. I also liked how I saw in your liner notes you had a quote from Plato's Republic where he says that music and astronomy were twinned sciences, and our ears are formed for the exploration of music while our eyes are for astronomy. And that seemed to tie in really well with the Voyager track as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was helped. I mean, we spend a long time on lyrics. You know, we for us, you know, as I said earlier, the songwriting is important, and that means not just the melodies and the chords, but it also means the words. So we'll quite often spend months researching backstories of things to try to make the most of the stories that we're trying to tell. I was helped by a chap called Stuart Clark, who's become a friend of ours. He's a scientist and astronomer and a writer in England, and you know, I met with him a couple of times to talk through some of the ideas that I had for Voyager, and he really gave me, you know, some great steers. And I think the great thing with Stuart and others of his type, Carl Sagan being a good example, is that their primary role is to communicate science. You know, that is the wonder of it all, if you see what I mean. You know, scientists themselves can get very deeply into the research, but it's important that the research is connected to humankind in a broader context. Mm-hmm. And what Stuart does and others is to communicate that and that sense of wonder and extraordinariness, really. So he was an absolute godsend in terms of researching those words.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So while the Big Big Train has been very productive in releasing new recordings, your approach to live shows has been much more, you know, calculated, shall we say?
Yeah.
Do you see that more of the world will experience Big Big Train live in the near future?
Yeah, for sure. We've been very careful and cautious with the live side, mainly really for cost purposes. You know, it's okay. You know, we wanted when we started, just to go back a million years, you know, we played live as a young band. Then we sort of became a studio project, really. And then over the last few years, we've become a proper band again and gone out and started playing shows. But it was very much, you know, let's kind of start playing when we felt the audience was there. We're, you know, we've all been around a bit, and I didn't particularly want to get in the back of a small minivan and be driving 200 miles to play to 20 people or something. So we kind of pitched back into the live environment when we felt that there was an audience there that really wanted to see us. So we kind of started off at a 400-seater venue in the UK and played 3 shows there. And then a couple of years later, we were up to sort of 1,000-seater and played 3 shows there at Cadogan Hall. And then beyond them, we've gone out to do the Lorelei Festival in Germany. And this autumn, we've got our first proper UK tour. And then we're going to be out in the US and Canada next year, and also to do a short tour of Europe as well. And I do feel going forward, I said at the start of the interview that, you know, our horizons of, you know, are getting further, and, you know, we'll be following those horizons as far as we can. You know, the story of the band, I think, is to try and continue writing and recording and releasing albums, but we've got to balance that with a fair bit of live work going forward as well. Plus, it's great fun. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm not like Nick or Rick. I've done hundreds and hundreds of shows, so it's a fairly new experience for me. But it's quite addictive. You know, and you know, it's really, you know, when it goes well, there really is nothing else like it. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more of this. And it's just strange. It's just a strange experience for me. You know, that's happened in, you know, I'm sort of 50, coming up to 53, and it's you know, the first time I go out on tour. It's quite late in someone's life, but I'm loving it. It's pretty good fun.
Yeah, well, we've been very patiently waiting over here on this side of the pond. So I'm glad to hear that 2020 you've got a at least hopefully a couple of gigs lined up over here in Canada.
Yeah, we will be in Canada and in the States. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, you've been slowly, bit by bit, just building your reputation into one of the most respected and esteemed progressive rock bands today. I think you were just recently voted Best Band by Prog Magazine as well, and David for the Best Male Vocalist.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, it's weird really, because 3 or 4 years ago, if we could have looked forward and seen where we are today, we'd have been pinching ourselves. I mean, it's really hard to make a career in music and progressive rock. It's hard anyway, but in the progressive rock world, it's very difficult. For me to see the band kind of beginning to thrive. I mean, I'm not getting carried away here. We're kind of at the 1,000-seater level in the UK. What we need to do is to get out into Europe and beyond, and try to build that up to 1,000 or 2,000-seater in those areas as well. And that's going to take time. It's been but we've got, we feel we've got, the wind at our heels. We feel that we've got a fan base that's behind us. People are talking about us, mostly in a positive way. And it's got potential. And I think we all feel that in the band, as part of the camaraderie that we got. We talk a lot, and we all feel that we've got a fair bit of potential here. Whether or not where that will end up, I don't know. Hopefully, it will end up with us becoming successful enough for us to continue making music for many years to come. If it doesn't, then at least we've tried, and that's all you can do.
Well, as you said early on in this interview, it ties in nicely with the whole theme of the Grand Tour, and seeing as how you have played out the stories just based in England, I'm sure you've got many more stories to come for future albums of the Grand Tour as you yourself begin that Grand Tour.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and we've got quite a few thoughts about future songs that I'm very keen to write about New York. I've only been to the States once and spent a few days in New York, and I absolutely loved it. And there's some, I wandered around there a lot. I'm just making notes. Some great stories in that city. So yeah, we've got quite a few ideas about some further. I mean, that's the thing for us. We're a storytelling band. We're it's almost that folk tradition. It's not folk music, but it's that tradition of telling stories through songs. That's what appeals to us. That's what we're on the lookout for. Anything that's quirky or interesting or resonates with people. And those stories are across the world. Then they're out there to be found, and songs to be written about them.
Yeah, it really does establish you with a unique identity in the world of certainly progressive rock bands. It's amazing how many bands could be singing about whatever, but it seems that Big Train really has a unique corner there in what you're providing the audience, and people are really turning up to listen to it.
I think so. Yeah, I think we've. I mean, one of the things we love about progressive rock is it's a very broad genre. It covers a huge amount of areas, and we've managed to get our feet sort of fairly squarely on there. We do things our own way. We write our own things. We've got this brass band that comes along, which surprises people. It was that was noticeable at Lorelei, where the brass band started playing. It's not. It's like in England we have a sort of tradition of colliery bands, coal mining bands that goes back into the Industrial Revolution, and it follows on from that tradition rather than a kind of sort of jazz or funk type of brass.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of it's quite a mellow kind of sound, but it adds quite a huge resonance to the sound canvas of the band. And I think when you connect that with the storytelling and with the musicianship within Big Train, it does seem to appeal to fairly large numbers of people. We're just signing a licensing deal in Japan for Grand Tour. So again, there's that kind of feeling at the moment that things are are heading in a positive direction. I take nothing for granted. I've been doing this a long time, so I'm very conscious it could peter out, tomorrow. But as I said, we're going to give this as good a go as we can.
Yeah, well, we're on the ride, we're on the tour with you. So thank you so much for spending this time talking with us, and all the best in the release of the new album.
Thank you, Scott. Really good to talk to you.
Yes, have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed this interview with Greg Spawton from Big Big Train. Their new album, Grand Tour, comes out on May 17th, so be sure to pick that up. I'm sure all Big Big Train fans will appreciate this one. It's a brilliant recording. And looking forward to their upcoming touring in both this year and next. We're going to leave you now with a track that we were talking about earlier in the interview. This is the Carpe Diem track of the album called Alive.
Bright blue sky, open the door and step outside. Feel the wind at my heels. It's good to be alive. Full sail, the voyage begun. White cliffs of Dover, urge to see the world, to make us feel alive. So alive. I'm a traveling man, each day I walk the byways of this land, till I'm dead in the grave at the end of my days.